On the eve of the wedding, Ethan's stepsister suddenly locked him in the bridal, threatening to burn my wedding dress with a lighter. "Ethan, if you dare let that old woman wear this wedding dress and marry you tomorrow morning, I'll burn the whole bridal to the ground." Ethan lunged to grab the lighter but was fiercely pinned against the wall by her. "I've waited for you for 10 years, waited since the day you walked into this family. If you marry her, I'll die right in front of you." I kicked open the door, but Ethan turned to shield his stepsister, glaring at me with bloodshot eyes. "Grace, haven't you caused enough trouble? She's only 19. Can't you just cut her some slack?" The next second, he ripped open her dress zipper, his voice imbued with a desperate, defiant resolve. "Chloe, what you want, I'll give it to you. Tonight, you'll be mine, but you must promise to live well from now on." I watched him drag his stepsister into the bedroom, listening to the sound of the door locking securely, and emotionlessly dialed the phone. "Notify the guests, the wedding will proceed as planned tomorrow morning. In accordance with Grandpa's wishes, I'll marry you." When master door opened, Ethan was wearing a loose-fitting shirt. His collar was askew, revealing bruised, hickey-like marks on his exposed collarbone. His steps were faltering as he walked past me without a glance to open the refrigerator, his voice flat. "Grace, don't be hard on Chloe. She just clings to me, it's just a childish tantrum. Is that all?" I scoffed. "You'd throw away all decency just to appease her?" Ethan slammed the water glass on the table. "That's enough. Don't you understand how important Chloe is to me?" Hearing the commotion outside, Chloe leisurely emerged, wearing a bathrobe. On that bathrobe, my initials were embroidered. "Grace, ever since I was little, Ethan has always given me whatever I wanted, including his." She laughed outright, reaching out to pull open the bathrobe's collar, deliberately exposing the scratch marks on her chest. "Ethan just praised me for being a good girl, and said if I'm obedient, I'll get even more later." "Chloe." Ethan's face flushed crimson. He grabbed a throw pillow and threw it at her. "Try saying one more word." Chloe bent down to pick it up, then looked up and raised an eyebrow at me. "Grace, did you see? Ethan can't bear to be harsh with me at all." Watching their shameless post-coital arrogance, I felt my stomach churn violently. Everyone in our social circle knew that I had pursued Ethan for 3 whole years. I'd obsess over his slightest frown for ages. The day he agreed to be my boyfriend, I was overjoyed, renting out Lakeview for a whole night of fireworks. For him, I defied Grandpa's fury and cancelled the strategic pact with the White family. My family elders called me foolish, but I just wanted him to be happy. Even when he suggested buying a countryside for Chloe, I signed without even glancing at the contract. Honestly, I had been more than generous to the siblings. "Grace, who are you making that sour face for?" Ethan walked over, reaching out to touch my face, but I instinctively turned my head away. His hand froze mid-air, and his tone turned icy. "The wedding is tomorrow. Do you have to make such a scene?" "A scene?" I stared at the lipstick mark on his shirt. "And it's not making a scene when you and Chloe were rolling around on our wedding bed?" Don't bother explaining." I irritatedly cut him off. "Just a deep sibling bond, deep enough to strip down and share a bed." He was just about to retort when he was interrupted by footsteps from outside the door. It was Ethan's groomsman. The friend at the front caught sight of the bruise on Ethan's neck and teased with a smile, "Oh, not even married yet, and Ms. Grace is already so impatient. What does it have to do with her?" Chloe's face fell. She wrapped her arms around Ethan's waist, raising an eyebrow to assert her claim. "Ethan's first woman can only be me." The air instantly solidified. The friend's smile froze on his face, and it took him a while to dryly smooth things over. "It's just a child's joke, siblings playing around. Ms. Grace, don't take it to heart." "Who's joking?" Chloe scoffed, her voice rising several decibels. "Ethan belongs to me alone. If you don't believe me, go check the bedroom, my blood is still on the bed sheets. He has to take responsibility for me." "Chloe." Ethan trembled with rage, raised his hand and slapped her. Chloe clutched her face, looking at him in disbelief. "You actually hit me for that old woman." "Enough." I turned to leave, afraid I'd lose control and lash out if I stayed another second. "Grace, stop." Ethan chased after me and grabbed my arm. "Where are you going?" "Chloe is still upset, you can't leave." His friends also chimed in. "That's right, Ms. Grace, Ethan will be your husband tomorrow. You proposed 3 times before he accepted, you should cherish him." "Exactly, it's the 21st century, why obsess over such a triviality as firsts?" "Ethan isn't messing around with other women, he's just comforting his sister. Chloe is young and naive, just give her some leeway. You'll all be family soon." "Am I naive?" Chloe pointed at me, her eyes bloodshot. "Grace, Do you think you're so great just because you have a few bucks? He loves me. He always has. With that, she grabbed her bag from the sofa and slammed the door shut. To the moment Chloe slammed the door, Ethan lunged towards me, his eyes blazing red. Grace, are you happy now? It took me 2 hours to calm her down, and you drove her away with one sentence. 2 hours? He had the nerve to say that. I looked at the unconcealed accusation in his eyes and suddenly felt my throat tighten. My 5 years of genuine devotion to him were worth less than one of his stepsister's tantrums in his eyes. Ethan impatiently grabbed his jacket. If anything happens to her, I'm done with you. Just as he opened the door, he was stopped by footsteps in the elevator. Ethan's parents looked at the bruises on his neck, then swept their gaze over the mess all over the bridal, their faces instantly drained of color. It's the middle of the night, what are you arguing about? Tomorrow is supposed to be. Uncle, Aunt. I took a breath. Since you're here, I won't beat around the bush. Let's call off the engagement. Ethan's father's legs gave out, and he almost fell to his knees. Ethan's mother quickly supported him, her eyes filled with terror as she looked at me. Ms. Grace, my daughter-in-law, please. Don't scare us. This isn't a joke to be made. I'm not joking. I fixed Ethan with a sarcastic smile. Since you've already groomed a daughter-in-law since childhood, why did you pretend to beg the Gu family for help? Ethan's parents' faces grew even paler. Daughter-in-law? Our family only recognizes you as our daughter-in-law. I scoffed. Since some people have no shame, I might as well be blunt. The siblings have such a deep bond, deep enough to share a bed. Ethan dotes on his sister so much, and you know everything about Chloe. Wouldn't it be the same to have your adopted daughter as your daughter-in-law? After all, you're all family. Ethan's face turned ashen, and he subconsciously tightened his grip on his jacket. Grace, what the hell are you talking about? Am I making things up? 3 years ago, Ethan's father knelt in my office, begging me to save the Gu family. Ethan, always so arrogant, humbled himself for the first time. Grace, if you agree, I'll be with you. His eyes were stubborn then, devoid of any affection for me, only the numbness of being pushed to the brink. After his parents left, he refused to come near me, his voice stiff. Grace, my relationship with you is just a transaction. I was foolish, always believing that with enough effort, I could warm his heart. Now I understand, no matter how hard you try, it's useless if their heart isn't with you. In recent years, I'd invested tens of billions into the Pei family, helped them acquire 3 competitors, and even relinquished my overseas distribution channels. In just 3 years, the Pei family, relying on my Gu family, transformed from a struggling small factory on the brink of bankruptcy into a well-known enterprise. I thought I had given enough, but in Ethan's eyes, none of it was as important as Chloe. Ms. Grace, we failed as parents. Ethan's father dropped to his knees before me. Please, for the sake of the Pei family's obedience to you these past few years, give Ethan another chance. Ethan's mother also cried, Ms. Grace, Ethan was just confused for a moment, you're the only one he truly wants to marry. Ethan stood by, his face flushed crimson, his lips pressed into a thin line, remaining silent. Only after Ethan's parents were persuaded away by his friends did he unleash all his pent-up resentment. Grace, my parents are old. Do you really need to threaten them with the company? Threaten? I laughed, he was quite good at twisting facts. You were the ones who begged me for help initially. If you truly cared about your parents, you'd know the consequences of betraying me. He stumbled back a few steps as his phone suddenly rang. Chloe, where are you? What was said on the other end of the line, I didn't know, but his face grew paler and his lips trembled. Don't be rash. I never said I was going to marry her. Just pull over. After hanging up, he glared at me. Grace, Chloe's been drinking and she's on the freeway right now. She said if I dare to marry you, she'll crash the car. He took a step closer, his voice turning vicious. If you have any conscience at all, stop pushing us. 3. I looked at the unconcealed threat in his eyes and suddenly found it laughable. This was the man I'd cherished for 3 years, capable of using our engagement as a threat, all for his stepsister who was desperate to sleep with him. So? I quirked my lips. No. You're asking me to save her? You. Ethan trembled with anger, then seemed to remember something and sneered. Grace, don't think I don't know what you're trying to do. You just want me to beg, don't you? Fine, I'll beg you. Now go find her. He paused, his voice filled with desperate malice. Otherwise, even if we get married tomorrow, I won't let you touch me. I'll get a vasectomy right after the wedding, so your Gu family will have no heirs. I stared at his petulantly furious face and suddenly let out a low laugh. No heirs? He thought too highly of himself. I turned to leave but noticed the keys to my limited edition Maybach were missing from the entryway. Chloe must have stolen them. Ethan saw me freeze, and after a moment of realization, a confident smirk appeared on his face. If I remember correctly, that car has a GPS tracker, doesn't it? Even if you don't care about Chloe, you should at least think about your precious car, which you waited over half a year for. My heart sank. The most expensive car was just a material possession to me. But hanging in the car was the heirloom pendant my grandmother left me. It was her only remaining memento. Ethan impatiently urged me, "Why are you just standing there? I'm telling you, if Chloe does anything reckless." "Shut up." I cut him off and called my assistant. "Send a car over and synchronize my car's GPS location to me." I turned and looked at him coldly. "Don't annoy me with such foolish talk again." The car arranged by my assistant was waiting at the door. I buckled my seatbelt and drove towards the red dot on the GPS. My rang again. I was about to hang up, but after seeing the caller ID, I took a deep breath before answering. Marcus's voice came through, with its usual calmness. "Grace, are you sure about tomorrow, that it's not just a momentary fit of pique?" I pinched the bridge of my nose. "Do I look like someone who'd use a strategic pact for a fit of pique?" "Not really." He chuckled softly. "But you do seem like a fool blinded by a man. That's why I need a clear-headed ally." I looked at the screen, the Maybach's location heading towards the Countryside Pass, and frowned. The corporation wants to seize the European new energy market, and the Gu family's channels are the fastest route. We'll form a strategic pact, each getting what we need. Marcus was silent for a moment. "I'm not interested in marrying a woman whose heart belongs to another man. From tonight, there won't be." I stared at the frantically moving red dot on the screen. "See you at the church tomorrow." After hanging up, I floored the accelerator and sped off. At the end of the mountain, I finally saw the familiar car. But it suddenly U-turned and accelerated towards me. I had no time to react. The blinding headlights stung my eyes. Bang! The violent impact sent the car spinning out of control. My forehead hit the steering wheel, and warm blood trickled down my cheek. The intense pain made my vision swim. Through the shattered windshield, I saw the Maybach's door open. Chloe stumbled out, clutching something that glowed with a faint green light. It was the heirloom pendant my grandmother left me. "This thing is quite valuable, isn't it?" I struggled to crawl out, my ribs felt broken, and every movement sent tremors of pain through my body. "Let go." "Let go?" She kicked my car door. "You've been hounding my Ethan for 5 years, why don't you let me go?" She suddenly raised her hand, and the jade pendant was violently smashed to the ground. A crisp shattering sound followed, and as if that wasn't enough, she stomped on it fiercely. "Chloe!" I yelled, a coppery taste rising in my throat. "That was my grandmother's." "Your grandmother? Even your ancestors wouldn't help." She stepped forward, grabbed my blood-soaked shirt, and dragged me out of the car. She pointed to the hickey on her neck. "Ethan left this, only I am allowed to touch his body. Do you really think he likes you? He just you as a cash. He asked you for villas, for shares, for sports cars, which of those wasn't for me?" She looked at me, threw her head back, and laughed hysterically. "Grace, you think you're so capable, don't you? You stole my Ethan. I'll make you die." With that, she grabbed my collar and started dragging me towards the cliff. Four headlights flickered in the distance, and Ethan frantically got out of his car. "Chloe, are you okay?" He rushed over, holding Chloe and meticulously checking her from head to toe. Only after confirming she merely had a scratch did he sigh in relief. He turned and saw my forehead covered in blood, instinctively averting his gaze. How could Chloe be hurt? That was custom modified by me, only the bumper had a dent. "Grace, were you trying to do this? Chloe is my sister. How could you be so vicious, trying to run her over?" I couldn't help but sneer. "Ethan, anyone with eyes can see she hit me." I pointed to the shattered jade on the ground, enunciating each word. "She smashed my grandmother's memento." Ethan saw the broken jade on the ground, paused, then scoffed. "It's just a broken piece of jade, isn't it? Is your Gu family really short on that? I'll get you a better one tomorrow, how about that?" I looked at him and suddenly laughed, tears blurring my vision. Yes, in his eyes, everything could be bought with money. My grandmother's memento, my genuine affection, none of it was as valuable as a moment of happiness for his crazy sister. But standing so high, he gradually forgot that all the money he could freely squander was because of me. Chloe, hiding behind him, mouthed at me, "You lost." The excruciating pain made my vision darken. My fingertips trembled violently as I fumbled for my phone, barely managing to dial my assistant. "Tomorrow." The wedding will proceed as planned. Chloe immediately sneered, Ethan, look at her. She's almost dying, but instead of calling an ambulance, she's still thinking about marrying you. Ethan SQ. You did in front of me. Do you really want to marry me? Before I could speak, he raised 3 fingers himself. You can marry me, but you have to agree to my conditions. First, register a gaming company for Chloe and inject $1 billion into it. Second, transfer your Malibu house to her. Third, give her 30% of the shares in all companies under your name. Pure money is crude. What I want is for Chloe to be financially secure for life, he said, staring at my disheveled face. I looked at the unconcealed greed in his eyes, then turned my face away without speaking. Only when the ambulance siren wailed did I finally lose consciousness. The hospital lights were stark and blinding. The doctor said I had 3 broken ribs, a fractured left leg, and 15 stitches on my forehead. My assistant stood by, hesitant. Ms. Grace, are you really going to marry Mr. Marcus? I closed my eyes. I never make decisions I regret. Ethan sat in the living room all night. His lay on the coffee table, screen lit, but from midnight until dawn, he never received a message from Grace. He bit his lip, repeatedly convincing himself that Grace must be too severely injured, unconscious, which was why she hadn't contacted him. She wanted to marry him so badly, even if the wedding was postponed for a few days, he could wait. The sky outside gradually brightened. Chloe was sleeping soundly in his arms, but he had no intention of sleeping. It wasn't until noon that the Gu family's lavish shot to the top of all trending. In the photos, a red carpet was laid out at the church entrance, and the groom's name was prominently displayed, Marcus. 5 many people came to the wedding, both the Gu and White families were fully present. Marcus pushed my wheelchair, his gaze sweeping over my bandaged right leg, and chuckled softly. Grace, you're really something, can't even stand steadily, yet insisted on having the wedding today. Anyone who didn't know would think you loved me so moo. You couldn't wait to marry me. I adjusted my posture, meeting his gaze. Getting it done sooner is better for both our families, isn't it? He raised an eyebrow at me. You'd better not be marrying me impulsively just to spite Ethan, or I'll ruin you, even if it costs the entire White family. It's funny to think about, the White and Gu families have been rivals for so many years, yet my father even considered arranging a childhood engagement with the White family when he was young. I never expected that Marcus, with whom I'd been at odds since childhood, would now be my husband. Don't be nervous. Marcus adjusted my veil, his smile polite but distant. I'm not interested in your past affections. The White family is focused on new projects. Just remember, from today onward, you are Marcus's wife. He and I walked towards the center of the hall, meeting the guests' gazes. The minister placed my hand in his. Ms. Grace, do you take Mr. Marcus to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold, from this day forward, for better, for worse? As the organ music began, I was about to speak when the church doors suddenly burst open. Ethan stood silhouetted against the light, panting as he burst in, looking up at me defiantly. I object. Ignoring everyone's astonished stares, he charged straight over. Grace, weren't you supposed to marry me today? You'd better give me an explanation. I turned my face away. An explanation for what? Did you give me an explanation when you let Chloe climb into our wedding bed? The guests erupted in an instant commotion, and the media excitedly flashed their cameras. So, Ethan was the Gu family's original groom? Did they switch at the last minute? First time getting a front row seat to a major scandal. Is White the other man? Doesn't seem like it. Aren't Marcus and Grace sworn enemies? Listening to Ms. Grace, it sounds like Ethan cheated first. Ethan's face was a mottled mix of pale and green, and his hands, clutching his suit, were trembling. Grace, I forbid you to marry him. You're still mad at me, aren't you? I admit to all your grievances and accusations, but you can't use someone else playing a role to spite me. Playing a role? I quirked my lips. Mr. Ethan, the one who first betrayed the engagement, has no right to say such a thing. Ethan stiffened, pierced by my distant attitude, and shook his head violently. I don't believe it. You and Marcus have been at odds since childhood. The and White families have been fighting over projects for over a decade. How could you possibly marry him? Why not? I turned my head to look at Marcus beside me. He was looking down at the vows, his eyes calm and still. The person I'm marrying is Marcus. If Ethan is here to offer blessings, he's welcome. If he's here to cause trouble, then please leave. Grace. Ethan excitedly lunged forward, but Marcus stepped in front of me at the opportune moment. It seems Mr. Ethan hasn't accepted reality yet. Marcus said calmly. My marriage to Grace is a matter of mutual consent. You shut up. I want to hear it from her. Seeing the bodyguards approach, Ethan suddenly pulled a small knife from his bag and held it to his throat. Don't come any closer. His hand trembled violently, but his voice was fierce. Today is Grace's and my wedding. Either she and I get married as per our engagement, or I die right here. I looked at his face, flushed red with anger, and felt only irony. If he had rejected Chloe back then, he would be the one standing beside me now. When I loved him, even if Chloe clung to him, leveraging her status as his stepsister, I was willing to settle everything for him, as long as he didn't want it. But from the moment he wavered, nothing mattered anymore. I looked at him calmly, then turned to the minister and subtly gestured with my chin. Continue with the wedding. He froze for a moment, a flicker of panic in his eyes. I quirked my lips. Weren't you threatening to die? Why aren't you continuing? His pupils constricted, and the hand holding the small knife began to tremble. You. I knew Ethan too well. Selfish and clinging to life, how could he actually harm himself? He was merely gambling that I still cared for him, gambling that I would compromise. Just then, a commotion erupted outside the church, and the doors burst open again. Chloe rushed in, her eyes red, and yanked Ethan behind her. If won't marry him, I will. Ethan was always mine. No one can take him from me. Ethan struggled hard against Chloe's grip, but Chloe refused to let go. Chloe, you're hurting me. Ethan's arm was left with a distinct red mark from her grasp, but the smile in Chloe's eyes intensified. Ethan, pain makes people remember. I'll never let you go, not this time and never again. When I was shaking in pain on the wedding bed, you should have known that I was your first woman, and you'd have to take responsibility for me for the rest of your life. Her words sent the guest section into a complete uproar. Is this woman crazy? Does she even know what she's saying? They say the Pei family's adopted daughter is so exceptional. TSK. I think she's just a pervert. The family's perfectly good wedding has been completely ruined by these two siblings. Amidst the waves of disdainful whispers, Chloe seemed not to hear, gripping Ethan's wrist and dragging him out. One of his shoes was scuffed off by the carpet, and he stepped barefoot on the ground, still looking back at me, his eyes full of resentment. Grace, how can you just leave me? Chloe, let go of me, or I'll cut off our sibling relationship. Chloe's voice turned vicious. I'd love that. You're my future husband, not some brother. You can only come with me now. Do you still expect Grace to save you? Stop dreaming. Chloe had practiced taekwondo since childhood and had astonishing strength. She practically dragged him out of the church. I impatiently waved my hand, and the bodyguards CLO. Said the heavy wooden doors again. The chaos outside was completely shut off. The guests, who had been whispering moments ago, now bowed their heads, daring not to speak. Marcus picked up a glass of champagne from the table and drank it in one gulp. Finally, some peace. I took a deep breath and gestured to the minister again. Continue with the wedding. The minister cleared his throat and raised the Bible again. Mr. Marcus, do you take Ms. Grace to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do. Marcus's voice was clear, without a hint of hesitation. As we exchanged rings, I looked at the sparkling diamond and vaguely remembered trying on a wedding dress a year ago. Back then, my heart was full of joy, eagerly anticipating the day I would marry Ethan. But now, thinking about it, my heart felt not a single ripple. Regret? From the moment he willingly defiled himself with Chloe, all that remained was relief. Love was never a one-sided endeavor. As said, a clear-headed ally far outweighs a foolish lover. If someone cannot firmly choose you, then even the deepest obsession is merely self-indulgent. It will only end in utter defeat. After the ceremony, guests gradually departed. Marcus changed into a suit in the lounge, and when he emerged again, he was already carrying his briefcase. I had the lawyer put the contract in your office. He glanced at his watch. I have a flight to Europe tonight, perfectly timed to finalize the new project. I leaned back on the sofa, watching his composed demeanor, and suddenly smiled. Mr. Marcus is indeed worthy of being the White family heir, getting married in the morning, leaving for a business trip at night, not wasting a single moment. To be able to pick something up and then let it go is the most important lesson an adult should learn. He picked up his jacket, paused at the door, and looked back at me. Grace, someone truly worth looking back for wouldn't be busy throwing a tantrum in public after you've been in a car accident. As FO. Are those who aren't worth it. His words trailed off, but his meaning was crystal clear. Watching his retreating back, I called my assistant. Put the bridal on the market, sell it as quickly as possible. The other end of the line paused. But, Grace, that one was decorated to Mr. Ethan's preferences. I looked at the tree shadows passing outside the window. That's why I'm selling it. That suite was personally selected by Ethan after half a year of searching. The entire renovation followed his ideas, and all the furniture was custom-made in Italy. Half of the walk-in closet was reserved for Chloe. He said his sister had a lot of things. He even specially renovated a home theater, saying it would be convenient for Chloe to visit anytime. Turns out, that place never truly belonged to me from the start. Whenever I thought of that sordid night in the bridal, my stomach couldn't help but churn. Thankfully, it was all over. I vibrated with a message from my assistant. The suite was listed, priced 30% below market value, and inquiries were already coming in quickly. I exited the chat and slipped my phone back into my pocket. I looked down at the wedding ring on my ring finger. Its design was simple, a style Ethan would never have chosen. Yet, as I looked at it, it felt perfectly suited for me. 7 When was dragged back to the apartment by Chloe, red marks were already forming on his wrists from her grip. The apartment door slammed shut with a bang. He was about to struggle and cry out when Chloe clamped a hand over his mouth and pinned him against the entryway. Ethan, don't struggle, okay? Chloe's breath warmed his neck. No one can stop me now, you can only be mine. Her hand slid down his belt, and Ethan frantically pushed her away. Chloe laughed wildly. Ethan, the water I just gave you? I drugged it. You won't be able to resist. Let go. Chloe, you crazy woman. Crazy woman? Chloe chuckled softly, her fingertips tracing the bite marks still visibly on his collarbone. You certainly weren't saying that last night in your bridal. Let me think, what did my dear Ethan say? She hooked his chin. You said you'd be a good boy and always listen to me. Chloe's voice turned vicious. Have you forgotten all that? That was all because you forced me. Ethan turned his head away from her kiss, his voice trembling. I was afraid you'd burn down the house, afraid you'd act impulsively. Afraid I'd act impulsively? Chloe suddenly grabbed his chin, forcing his head down. Now that Grace has married someone else, you're just going to turn your back on me? A punitive kiss pressed down. Ethan bit her lip until it bled, and the metallic taste of blood spread between their mouths. Yet she seemed to feel no pain, instead tearing at his clothes even more fiercely. Amidst the sound of fabric ripping, Ethan's struggles grew weaker and weaker. Chloe licked away the tears of defiance on his face. Why pretend to be so virtuous? She shoved him onto the sofa, then condescendingly ripped open his shirt buttons. Last night, you were more eager than anyone. Neither of us was drunk. You were the one who wanted to consciously fall into depravity with me, the one who actively entangled yourself with me. I've seen all your sides. What are you putting on an act for now? Ethan looked at her in despair, his strength completely drained by the drug's effects. As her body pressed down on him, he resignedly closed his eyes, feeling every bone in his body ache. He didn't know how much time passed, only that Ethan was close to suffocating. Chloe finally got up, leisurely straightening her shirt. She glanced at him, curled up on the sofa, a mocking smirk on her lips. Wouldn't it be better to just be obedient? Not gentle at all towards your sister. The moment the door closed, Ethan frantically rushed into the bathroom. He turned the shower to full blast, but no matter what, he couldn't wash away the foul-smelling stickiness clinging to Hi's body. He scrubbed vigorously with a loofah until his skin was red and sore, yet he still felt dirty. He dry-heaved by the toilet, his stomach empty, and only after spitting up bitter bile did he collapse weakly to the floor. Ethan's trembling hands fumbled for his phone, opening WhatsApp to send a message to a familiar profile picture. The reply, however, was a heart-stopping red mark. Impossible, he murmured, then reluctantly called Grace. A robotic female voice repeated, the person you are trying to reach is currently on another call. Again and again, until his phone grew hot, he finally released it in despair. Grace truly didn't want him anymore. He stumbled towards the door, turned the doorknob, but it wouldn't budge. The door had been locked from the outside, the cold metal pressed painfully into his palm. Crazy woman. Ethan pounded violently on the door, his voice hoarse, but only an empty echo responded. Chloe had locked him in. He frantically searched the apartment for keys, drawers, cabinets, sofa crevices. He searched every corner, but found nothing. Finally, his gaze fell on the study door. Chloe had always kept that door locked, never allowing him to touch it. But this time, he opened it with ease. All 4 walls of the study, from ceiling to floor, were plastered with his photos. There were pictures of him at 7 years old, dressed in a black t-shirt when he first entered the Pei family. There were candid shots of his profile at 15, hunched over homework in his room, secretly taken from outside the window. There were even countless images of him showering in the bathroom, steam blurring the glass, yet his silhouette was clearly visible. On the desk sat a dozen photo frames, all close-ups of him. Tucked away at the bottom of the bookshelf was an old journal. Ethan's trembling hands opened it. Today I drugged Ethan's milk again. I secretly snuck into his bed and slept with him. I really love him so much. Ethan felt the world spin, his stomach turned violently once more, and he lost the courage to read on. Do you like it? Chloe's voice suddenly came from the doorway. He whirled around to see her leaning against the doorframe, idly playing with a key, smiling like a madwoman. These are all surprises I prepared for you. From the first time I entered the Pei family and met you, you should have known that you couldn't escape. Chloe, you're insane. Ethan's voice was shaking uncontrollably. I'm your Ethan. I can't marry you. Ethan? She scoffed, stepping closer. It's not legally incestuous. Do you think Grace would still want you? Now, besides me, who else would want a man who's been slept with by his sister? Shut up. He grabbed a photo frame from the desk and threw it. Even if I die, I won't be with you. The photo frame shattered at her feet, glass scattering everywhere. Chloe's eyes suddenly turned cold. She bent down, picked up a shard, and pressed it against his chin. Ethan, don't push me. What I've wanted my entire life, I've always gotten. If you just listen to me, we can still be like before. Impossible. Ethan recoiled in terror, his back hitting the bookshelf hard. Ethan, where do you think you're going to hide now? Chloe, red-eyed, spread her arms towards him. We could be so good together, we could get married, just the two of us, wouldn't that be wonderful? One hand gently cupped the back of his neck, while the other, holding a piece of glass, suddenly tightened its grip. Warm blood trickled down Ethan's cheek. He looked at Chloe's frantic eyes and suddenly laughed. You can't keep me, you never could. If I can't keep you, then let's die together. Chloe, provoked by his words, snatched the table lamp from the desk, ready to throw it. A sudden, urgent knocking sounded from outside the door, freezing her movements mid-air. Open the door. We received a neighbor's call. Seizing the moment she froze, Ethan rushed to the door with all his might and flung it open. As police burst in, Ethan collapsed completely to the floor, letting the blood from his face trickle onto the ground, unable to utter a sound. As was pinned to the ground, she screamed hysterically, Ethan, you'll be mine eventually. Unless I'm dead, you'll never leave me. The police sirens faded into the distance. Ethan lay on the cold floor, his eyes hollow, staring at the ceiling. In a daze, his mind was filled with Grace's image. He himself had extinguished that sole ray of light. 6 months later, I received a call from Ethan at the celebration party for my European project. Marcus was toasting partners with champagne, his gaze flickering to my phone screen, a slight curve to his lips. I nodded at him, then turned and walked to the terrace before answering the call. Ethan's voice was choked with emotion. Grace, I'm so scared. That lunatic Chloe was sentenced to a year, but I'm afraid she'll come after me when she gets out. She said she wouldn't let me go. His voice was trembling badly. I was wrong, I really was wrong. In these past 6 months, I've finally realized how much I love you. You don't love Marcus, do you? Can we start over? I'll listen to everything you say, and I'll never make you angry again. Mr. Ethan. I interrupted him. In these past 6 months, I've also come to realize something. What we had, it's long over. The evening breeze dispelled any lingering tipsiness, leaving me perfectly clear-headed. My marriage to Marcus is a strategic pact between our families, but it's also my own choice. You're lying. He suddenly raised his voice. You don't love him at all. You married him just to spite me. Grace, I know him. He only cares about profit. How could a man like that? It's not your place to comment on him. People only believe the superficial things they see. He wouldn't know that Marcus managed the company flawlessly, and his home was the same. Whenever I came home, diverse meals were waiting for me. He remembered my preferences and reminded me to take my medicine on time. Love aside for now, at least he saw me, and kept my affairs in mind. Unlike, who always only saw his own needs. He never considered whether I was willing or happy. I watched Marcus's effortlessly confident figure in the banquet hall, a smile unconsciously gracing my lips. At least he wouldn't say he loved me while letting others fawn over him. There was a long silence on the other end, so long I thought he'd hung up, before I heard him say, choked with sobs, I'm afraid Chloe will retaliate against the Pei family. I have nightmares every day. I don't want to. That's between you and your sister, and it has nothing to do with me. I hung up and permanently blocked his number. As I turned, Marcus was standing behind me, my jacket in his hand. Ms. Grace, you certainly are devoted. Is a person like that still worth answering the phone for? Not devotion. I took the jacket and put it on, my voice calm. It's about making a clean break from the past. He raised an eyebrow, smiled, and didn't press further. After that, Ethan never contacted me again. It wasn't until a year later, when I returned to the country, that I heard news of the Pei family from my assistant. The day Chloe was released from prison, Ethan stabbed her at the Pei family villa and then committed suicide by slitting his wrists. Ethan's parents' hair turned white overnight. They hastily auctioned off their company, took the money, and returned to their family, never to be seen again. When learned the news, he was reviewing a merger contract with me. His pen tip paused, and he looked up at me. Do you want to see him one last time? No need. I signed the document, my voice very soft. His life ceased to have anything to do with me a long time ago. But in the end, after repeated pleas from Ethan's parents, I still went to the cemetery. Ethan's grave was simple. His photo was the first picture I had ever taken of him. I laid down a bouquet of white stewed for less than 3 minutes, then turned and left. On the way back, Marcus sent me a message. New project secured. Celebration at our usual spot. A smile touched my lips. Marcus and I didn't have a passionate, dramatic love, but a quiet understanding had grown between us over the year we'd spent together. I understood his inner resilience, and he understood my ambition. We never needed to deliberately please each other, yet we always seemed to grasp what the other was thinking. The cemetery in the rearview mirror grew smaller and smaller, finally disappearing from view. I turned on the music. It was the violin music Marcus enjoyed. The road ahead was still long, but this time I knew who was by my side, and I knew exactly where I was going. Thank you for watching today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. We look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more exciting stories. See you next time.